Well, we're back again. I know we had a little hiatus there. Thanks for everybody for hanging in there with us. So this is our second most recent episode that we're back from our little hiatus. And I'm very pleased to have the folks from PayNearMe. We have Ann Hay, who's the head of marketing and consumer research at PayNearMe. And we have Steve Murphy, who is the director of marketing. Both great supporters of the podcast. We already did a series of pods about some of the thought leadership that you all are doing in the space. And now we're down to paper number 3 in the consumer research program. And I'm really excited to have you on so we can talk about some of the characteristics of payments and how consumers are acting in the current space. So that was way too long of an intro. And Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Joel. So nice to be back. Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Joel.
Great. So, Ann, why don't you tell us a little bit about the program? Obviously, as the head of marketing and consumer research, this is something that's just so squarely down your path. And kind of maybe tell us a little bit about, the basis for the research and what you were trying to kind of dive into before we maybe get into it. Like, what's the basis for why you kind of headed down this path?
Sure. So as a payments organization, it's really important for us to keep our fingers on the pulse of what both billing organizations and what U.S. consumers are doing, how they're feeling, what they're looking for. And for this particular research paper, which you mentioned, this is 3 of 4, we have got one more coming out. We really wanted to take a look at not what consumers are doing around bill pay, but what they would like to do. Are they getting their needs met? What kinds of things would make the process easier for them so that we can share that information with our clients, prospects, and the general population. And so, goodness for everybody around, billing organizations paying attention to the things that are really actually helping consumers in their own words, what they would find useful and helpful in their payment experience. It's
so great to take a stop like this and pause and look and see channel effects across different things, because I remember when text to pay came out, right? I can send a tiny URL and somebody's going to click on it and they're going to pay. I know that had its day. And then I think other things kind of came in, and then, these things may kind of loop back around, right? For sure. The QR code. Yeah. That's our favorite comeback story, right, Steve?
Yeah, we thought it was going somewhere 10 years ago. It went nowhere. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hits and QR codes are everywhere. And now it's an expectation.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, we're also used to just pulling up our photo and then it pops open Safari. And now I can see the menu and I can order that cheeseburger that I really want,
Yeah, cameras caught up, right? For a little while, their QR codes kind of started. And then cameras weren't catching up to the technology to be able to use it. And now sort of all the phones and the cameras are awesome. And it's working much better for everyone now. And
yeah, I feel like for some of those codes, like you needed to maybe download an app in order to kind of see, but now it's just native, which is the right way to do it as far as I'm sure we'd all agree.
For sure.
Well, so Ann, I'm excited. Like, let's dive into this. I want to hear what you've kind of learned.
Sure. All right. So for this installment of the paper, we took a look at late payments. Are they happening? Spoiler alert. Yeah, for sure they're happening. We want to know who's paying late, why and what consumers say would help them. What are the reasons why they're paying late? And another spoiler alert, there's not really one reason, and it really varies across generations. So, according to our survey findings, more than half of U.S. adults, over 51% to be exact, age 18 older, paid at least one bill late in the past year. So that's a lot of late payments with some pretty significant repercussions when you think about what it does to customer satisfaction. And then, ultimately in an organization's bottom line. But the good news there is that many of the causes of late payments that U.S. adults reported, they can be helped. Wasn't the top of the reasons I don't have the money, I lost my job. These are things that billers can take a look at and really make for a better payment experience for their customers.
That's really important to know and understand your customer. So my background is most heavily in subprime, deep subprime automotive, where financial capacity, right? So it's very fragile. And if you lose your job or you're hospitalized and you're one of these people that if you don't work, you don't get paid, they don't have savings. They don't have a lot of bank access to products like a HELOC or something they can dive into. So they're really relegated to maybe going to the pawn shop and selling something, right? It's it's a lot different experience for those people. And I think it's just really important, to your point, to understand the reasons behind lateness so you can maybe offer programs to assist, right?
Yeah,
As a lender.
absolutely. Things that ease the process overall in general. Everything from having flexibility in your auto payment schedules, right? You're not sort of, to your point, locking folks in to have a payment due once a month, have it always due on the same day, offering your consumers ways to sort of help them manage how they're managing their finances. And they don't, it's not that they don't want to pay you. Nobody says, oh yeah, I'm really happy about, paying late. No one, the research told us that pretty consistently across the board, less than 7%, are very like they don't enjoy it. Nobody likes that, right? There are other things that are going on. And those things that are at the top of that list, people either procrastinated or forgot to pay the bill. It was like about 37% of consumers reported that. And I could put that in with, I procrastinate because maybe I don't have the money and I can't figure it out yet. So I'm going to put the bill over there and figure it out later. And then some of the other reasons are around losing bills or simply overlooking it. All kinds of things that billing organizations do and can have an opportunity to just make that experience easier. And we all know what happens when customers have really good experiences with you, right? They keep coming back, and that's really important. And they refer, and for lenders specifically, that's pretty important.
Mm. And so the domain of were you looking across all the different types of consumer products in your research?
We looked at the research by bill type. So we asked them, of this variety of bills, which ones are you paying late? Which ones are you most likely to pay late? And then we looked at it by age group. So we segmented them across the board. And I can go into that next, if you'd like, what are the reasons why? Because as I mentioned, there was not one reason, but they all sort of had a common theme around them, which you'll hear as we're talking.
I'm pulling for Gen X to be the best.
So, all right, let's dive in, right? So young adults, those that are 29, under 30, young adults, most likely to miss payments because they have difficulty keeping track of due dates, over half of them. And over half of them reported that remembering passwords when trying to log in was really hard, right? So imagine if you're, sort of don't have a really good way to enable this generation to pay their bill from a mobile device. And now you've got to, now they got to go on their web portal and they got to remember a password and they got to figure it out. And it's just not a really good experience for them. They're pretty used to, showing their face and authenticating to get into pretty much anything they want. Mm-hmm. And now you're forcing them to say, when you remember your due date, I'm not going to send you a notification. You remember, oh yeah, and you remember how to log in and pay me. Not a good experience for that group.
Interesting. And I would think that they were more technologically savvy. So I'm a geezer and I can't remember anything. And I don't want to use that same silly password over and over again. So I use a tool called LastPass. This is not an ad for them, but it's a key chain, a locker for my passwords. And if you pay them a couple bucks a month, it'll integrate with your phone and your laptop, even your work computer. You can have that open, and it does use some of the facial recognition as well. I wonder why that younger generation doesn't adopt these kind of technologies.
Well, Joel, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Because don't confuse tech savvy with tech dependent, right? So many of these people in this generation grew up with a mobile phone in their pocket that they're so dependent on getting a calendar alert, getting a text message, telling me what to do when I need to do it. So if they're not getting prompted with a reminder and an easy way to then make a payment, there's a good chance it slips their mind completely, right? Until they get a call, until they get a threatening letter in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. Not that they don't want to. I think they would love to. I think, like to Murphy's point here, those things that are on their devices that are already helping them to pay really easy are not being initiated by the biller, or not like they could, right? Are they pushing a notification out on their wallet?
Yeah.
It just says, hey, go pay it. If the billing organization isn't enabling that, or it isn't enabling Apple and Google Pay, right, so that they could go ahead and then complete the payment all the way through, you can see where there would be some, discomfort and disorganization, and then, ultimately a delay in a payment.
So here's another question for you both. So I take advantage of a lot of the bill pay features within my banking, and it seems to be common across all the different types of banks that I do banking with. I can either set it up that I can receive the bills, the e-bills there, and they'll present them to me and they'll prompt me for paying them. or I sometimes just set them, right? You know, I know that this bill's always my mortgage always hits on the same day. Is it safe for me to assume that maybe this population of the under 30s are not really using traditional banking?
There's this sort of argument that's gone around for a long time. Remember when everyone thought like banking bill pay was going to be it, right? It's where everybody's going. And then consumers kind of like, it's not really a great experience in my bank. So, or I don't have a lot of control that I need.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to my biller's website, or my biller's website is offering me sort of more content that I need that I can't get. So I think like it makes sense for some of the bills. Like certainly I have things set up on my auto pay and my banking, like my mortgage payment, which I already know I have the money in the account. I know it is, but think about if you needed to manage your finances a little more closely.
Right.
You are setting up auto pay from your bank. You don't have the flexibility that you might get from your biller, like changing the frequency of the payments or breaking it into biweekly payments or anything like that. That kind of stuff kind of goes out the window when you go over to banking bill pay because you don't have that kind of flexibility. So
lack of flexibility. I love that.
You have it when you go to your biller if they're offering that, and they can be, right?
Yeah.
And our research supports that. You know, we ask people because this seems like a no-brainer, right? Auto pay solves a lot of these problems for you. Only 25% are using auto pay right now for any of their bills. That's not even for all of their bills, just for any. And the top reason they said that they're not setting up auto pay, 70% want to control when their bills get paid. So there's this trust issue, right? Like, I don't want someone just pulling money from me. I want to be in control of that. And I think that goes directly back to the initial point of forgetting, because if you're not going to set it on auto pay, then that means you're going to either have to be responsible for remembering or have the biller send you a timely reminder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a really good point. And let's keep going.
Yeah.
So what's the next? Are we going to get into the next cohort?
So 30s? The adults. So our next group, we looked at age 30 to 44, those who've essentially grown up with smartphones in their hands, right? At least at their adult lives, most likely to overlook paper bills at 34%. But, also maybe a little more interesting to me is what percentage of them, 26%, had indicated becoming frustrated with a cumbersome online bill pay process, right? So this is that group, this age group who pretty used to using the internet and online and, for pretty much everything, right? Starting to use mobile, depending on where you are in that, I'll put myself on the end of that spectrum, and I'm pretty comfortable with them. I think, I will say won't say where I am, but I'm pretty comfortable with it. But but I do know that if I get a bill, like maybe from, there are certainly some like tolling, my tax, I live in a really small town, taxes, I get a paper bill, and it just says, go to this website and type in all these numbers and put in this account. And it's not that I don't have the money to pay this. It just will sit on my desk because I can't deal with it, right? I can't go on. I can't be bothered to have to go on a website and figure out how to put my numbers in and whatever that. So it just becomes late. It's not there's no reason behind it. So interestingly, this cohort really reported that happens a lot for them. They've got this sort of expectation, and they're getting these paper bills, or they're getting bills delivered them in a way that it doesn't make it really easy to complete a payment. And we've seen things like we mentioned QR codes later, whereby like it's really easy. If that bill that's out on my desk had a QR code and I was able to click, and then I was going to pay my bill right on my computer or on my phone, or even better, I was able to scan my facial recognition, Apple Pay, and done, even better. So there's really that age group, that 30 to 44, with just, man, when bill pay is hard, I just don't want to deal with it. Not that I don't have the money, I just don't want to deal with it. And therefore, it rolls into delinquency. And not that they don't want to, it's challenging, right? It's complicated.
So is it fair for me to say that, we may be dealing with entities like a tax entity, right? That really just thrives on sending the paper bill, that they might be better served. They may have better collections if they kind of view it a little bit differently, to add that QR code or to find ways to e-bill if they could.
For sure. Like PayNearMe's has a number of organizations we're working with where they have adopted that technology. They have to send paper bills, or there's no way for them to reach, like, for example, someone's going through a tolling and they're an out-of-state visitor and you're never going to see them again. But you have this, they went through the thing without a ticket, and now they owe you a toll, right? There's opportunities like that, more sort of one-time off payments that it works really well for. But I think overall, just having an easy way, to have your bill pay process on a mobile centric for this age group is really important. And cut out those paper bills if you can, right? I mean, I think people don't really want them.
I'm waiting for you to get to the next cohort, which is mine. And I'm a paper bill guy, and I get really bent around the axle when they don't send me a paper bill. And SDG&E, if you're listening, you guys need to get your act together. You never send me a paper bill, and it's painful. It got so bad one time that they weren't sending me anything. Yeah. And I had to go and I had to pay at Walmart using like Western Union or MoneyGram or something. And I thought, well, okay, this is interesting because I have a lot of customers that pay this way. So I'll get a taste for the experience.
Yeah.
But it was a hassle, man. I just didn't want to deal with it.
So adults age 45 to 60 are most likely to procrastinate or forget a bill by far across the board. So interesting you say, I want my paper bill, right? Because if you had it in front of you, it's a little bit easier to not, forget it or procrastinate if you're looking at it. But by far, this age group was the most likely to just procrastinate and forget. There wasn't really.
I wonder if that's my issue, and I'm just like lying to myself. I had the bill and I lost it, or what? No, I have a system. I stack my bills and I pay them on the weekend. I pay them on like Saturday morning. I'm like, okay, this is when I'm going to sit down and do this stuff because I might want to look through the bill a little bit. I just need that free time.
Yeah.
And the e-billing for that stuff just never really worked for me.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting on something that's a common theme across all of this, right? It's that there is no average consumer.
Yeah.
Maybe you can look at all these data points and say, well, most people do this or some people do this. But if you're talking 5%, 6%, 7% late payers, that can really add up. So even though it's a small percentage of your customer base, what you need to do is have more choices, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to provide paper bills to those who want it and text messages to those who want it, or emails, right? If someone needs to pay with cash because that's all they have versus someone that wants to pay with Apple Pay, right? Giving people their first choice of payment will put you closer to the top of their list of which bill they're going to pay first because it's the easiest to get out of the way and check off your list.
That's fascinating. Yep. So what we're hearing is that based on the suite or the menu of payment options, if you make it easier and you give them an option that works best for them, you can manipulate that individual's payment waterfall, which, we used to analyze the payment waterfall in nonprime automotive because it used to be you paid your car, then your house, right? During the Great Recession, that was a big thing. Now it's the mobile phone that gets paid first, right? Temporarily thinking like, if I'm forced, this is how I'd go. But that cell phone, if I give you a crappy way to pay, that might fall into third position for that individual. And then everything breaks apart.
Yeah. And even looking at the research we did supports that. When we asked people, what would make it easier for you to pay your bills on time, right? Nearly a third of them said that the ability to use different payment types each payment cycle would make it easier, right? This month, my bank account looks great. I'm happy to do an ACH. Next month, things are a little tight, so I'm gathering cash from my family. I want to make a cash payment, right? But giving those options each month and not restricting people to the one or two payment types that you feel they need to pay with is really crucial to getting more on-time payments on a whole.
This is great. And we're all over the place, and you're going to hold us together. You're going to keep us going down the path, but this is great information. I'm really interested in this. I can't wait to take a look at the actual copy, and I will share that link at the end of the podcast, and we'll put it in the podcast notes as well. So we want everybody to be able to read this great research.
Yeah, this is a great point because there is no one cause for late payments as reported by those surveyed. There's sort of not one way to fix them either, right? So Murphy makes a great point around making sure you have lots of options for your consumers and you are meeting the way that they prefer to manage and pay their bills in the easiest way, right? And you look at sort of reliability, right? We looked at the things that surprised us in that research, right? We'll look over there, right? So reliability gets better as we look at the older generation. No surprise, but when it comes to paying the bills, all it tells me is that the same old works just fine for them, right? When you look at the staggering numbers for the age group 18 to 30, that indicated difficulty with due dates, navigating online sites. Clearly it doesn't for the up and coming largest group of consumers. So there was, some of the folks in the older generation say, yeah, my bill pay stuff works just fine. Well, they've probably been using that same bill pay process for a long time, right? It's a reliability factor, but billing organizations are having an opportunity to look at the new and upcoming, whether it's a payment type or it's a way to manage bills for the consumers across the board. And particularly that growth of popularity in digital wallets. So that from the data, 42% of adults said that they would be likely or very likely to use digital wallets. So we asked that because we know that's sort of an up and coming way for a lot of billing organizations to enable their consumers. So we asked them, if you could do it, would you? And, a pretty significant amount of adults said they absolutely would like to do it. And I think just in general, that's sort of a rising tide of how people are living, are sort of living their lives every day and what they're accustomed to, right? Just digital wallets are becoming much more prevalent.
Are things like Venmo and Zelle considered digital wallets?
Yeah, they fall into that area, right? If I'm using PayPal or Venmo, managing, there's sort of the stored value, right? Like that. And then there's also the digital wallet on your phone where you're just maintaining a card in your wallet and you can sort of visit that card in your wallet every month, or your billing organization can send you a notification that says, hey, your bill's due. Take a look at the bill, which is in your mobile device, right? Sort of organizations that are using the more modern technology around the digital wallets are able to actually link their bill into a consumer's mobile device, right? If you've ever stored your airline ticket there, you can store your bill there and then send a push notification out when the bill is due. The consumer opens up that card, they can see their payment history, they can see what's due, they can see when it's due, right? And you've got that linked up to your Apple Pay, for example, paid and you're done. So you're essentially, as a biller, living in your consumer's pocket in their wallet, right? And what a great and easy experience that is for them.
So check this out. So I use my wallet primarily for like airline tickets or for concert tickets, right? Apple Wallet, right? But if I knew that each of my people that I owe money to was going to populate that wallet in some structured way where I knew all the bills were ending up in there and I could pay that way, I would actually do that over getting my bill emailed to me. I hate giving out like my good email. So I give out my crappy email and it's just riddled with spam. So sometimes it's like hard to cut through the mustard, that's the real reason why I asked for a paper bill. Cause I don't want to miss it. I feel like it's too easy for me to miss it. And I don't want them clogging up my regular email with all these solicitations and other stuff. That just goes above and beyond the bill. You're going through stuff and it's like, hey, click this button if you don't want to receive messaging. Half the time I forget to click that button. I'm just getting destroyed.
And Joel, think about it not only from a consumer point of view, right? It's really easy for a consumer. From a biller standpoint, right? If I'm a car dealer or a lender, I know that the card that's in Apple Wallet is a good card, right? I know it's been verified and already used. So I know someone's not mistyping their number. Fewer chances of getting an exception payment. In addition to that, something like, do you use PayPal or Venmo?
Yeah.
Right. PayPal, on average, people keep $485 sitting in their PayPal wallet. Think of how much easier it is for you to get money from them from PayPal with money already sitting in their wallet than if they have to then transfer that money to the bank, wait for it to clear, then initiate an ACH payment, right? You've just now captured something where someone's already holding a balance and that balance is ready for you to take.
Let's pick on like Venmo or PayPal, for example. Like I know that at Nortridge, when I'm dealing with people who are in consumer lending that are looking at different payment options, they've asked about the digital wallets and they've asked about like Venmo and PayPal. And I always kind of push back and say, I don't know that we're really quite there yet, but I mean, am I wrong? Are we kind of there? And are these things being offered more through lenders and other bill collectors? Is it finding its way more into the standard menu?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Most of the clients we're talking to we just rolled out PayPal Venmo on the PayNearMe's platform. A lot of excitement about it. I think it comes down to knowing your customer base, right? But as Murphy mentioned, like choice is really key. I think at least over the last 2 years, PayPal and Venmo become much more popular. I think at this point, consumers are going to expect to have that as a payment option. And I think that's an opportunity for billing organizations to really delight their consumers by giving them options like that they're becoming very used to using sort of every day. No,
Yeah.
Murphy, anything you want to add there?
It's funny because people are asking like, well, I don't know anyone that pays with PayPal for my bills. And the reason is because no one gives you the chance to pay your bills with PayPal. If you look at general internet spending, nearly a quarter of all e-commerce transactions are done with PayPal.
Really?
Consumers are there already. They're using it as a payment type. We just need to give them the ability to actually pay their bills with it. Otherwise, if you're only reporting on ACH and debit, then of course you're never going to see it show up in the statistics for what people are paying with. And that's kind of why we did this research, because it's not about what people are doing now. It's about what consumers want to do and expect to do with bill pay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why we ask, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I don't know. I just have assumptions, and it's good to ground these assumptions. I would think that the youngest cohort would be very conversant with Venmo and PayPal, and used to using that to kind of pay people for stuff or whatever. Pay your friends. You owe them for this or that or whatever. Make it available. Make it available to them.
Yeah, we took, if you, for your listeners, take a look at, there's a previous report in this research that really looked at payment types, like where we asked not only what are you doing, but what would you like to do? And it's called How Consumers Pay Bills, Expectations versus Reality. And PayPal topped the list. 43% of the respondents indicated it was either important or very important for PayPal. It was followed by Apple Pay and Google Pay at 30%, Venmo, Amazon Pay, right? We look specifically at the more upcoming mobile payment types, and then Cash App and crypto sort of, down the end. I think we've got some time yet for those, but consumers already told us that they would like to, if they had the opportunity to use, Apple Pay, PayPal, Venmo.
Are there issues or concerns from a lender standpoint about the safety and compliance that comes with some of these things? Like, I don't know too much about Cash App, but I would wonder if they have the same protections and other things that like a PayPal or a Venmo might have.
Mm-hmm. I can't comment on Cash App at this point. I'm not aware either. I think that Cash App is certainly rising in popularity, especially in certain regions of the country. And I think it's something to keep an eye on. We're always looking at PayNearMe. We're always looking at what new emerging payment types are growing in popularity and what consumers are, and talking to our clients about it. And I think that one, we're keeping an eye on Cash App. Same way we'd be keeping an eye on crypto, which I don't know if people will be paying their bills with that anytime soon, but it's going to be something that we keep our eye on.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we had alluded to earlier, right? There are some obvious benefits, right? For something like Apple Pay. Someone has to actually use their Face ID or thumbprint. So if you're looking for proof that someone actually made a payment, a lot goes in your favor in helping to win a chargeback or dispute a claim, because you have that biometric trail coming back to the person.
That's exactly what I was kind of wondering about, which is like
chargebacks.
Chargebacks. Yeah, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that because of the reasons that Murphy had mentioned, there's, it's harder to dispute a charge that was made when, you need your face to complete it. So
yeah,
those mobile, as opposed to looking at things like credit cards or actually more debit or things that could be, stolen or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a little bit of research into this. We looked at all of our data, and obviously it's still somewhat up and coming, but with Apple Pay, we saw that in our initial data set, chargebacks for Apple Pay payments, 25% lower than total card payments. And even more impressive, 7x win rate for chargeback disputes with Apple Pay. So lenders were seeing a substantial increase with the amount of disputes they won when looking at Apple Pay chargebacks.
Makes sense. So that surety that you have in terms of qualifying that the actual individual did make the payment definitely helps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what else? What else did we learn? Big stuff from the survey.
Well, I think that let's say we could take a look at automotive loans. I know that we looked by bill payment type. We can take a look at types, and what folks are reporting there. When we looked at what bills are getting paid late the most, topping the list were, no surprise in their utility bills. They were pretty high in the list. There's a little bit more forgiveness there. There's not like hits to your credit score that could happen if you're late paying those. But for the consumer financial audience, we look at automotive loans. Our data revealed that 28% of the U.S. adults with an auto loan admit to making late car payments, and 1 in 6 of them were making frequent or late payments on their auto loans. And if you think about U.S. adults just been taking on auto loans in record-setting amounts. Like we mentioned how hard it was to find cars and things like that. And there was some lending tree data that was published that showed that 8% of outstanding auto debt is at least 90 days late, and another almost 6% 30 days overdue. So there's a lot, for our auto lenders out there. There's a lot of pretty high delinquency rates happening. And I think when we look a little bit deeper, there was some research from the Center of Microeconomic Data looking again at those adults under 30, 50% more likely to fall into delinquency with their car loans than their older counterparts. So again, this is the age group most heavily reliant on their mobile devices. There's definitely opportunity there for auto lenders to help those customers pay and manage their bills on time.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, auto, it just seems like you do deal with delinquency a lot. And I just assume that it's kind of pervasive across other types of consumer loans, but maybe that's not the case.
I think it is. I think like we have some information on the report that really dives deep into the different types of payments. And like I mentioned, utilities kind of at the top of the list. If you think about what bills, if I had to pay them late, which ones are going to hurt me the most? And if I had to prioritize based on that, certainly there's when you start getting into your loans, there's a little bit more risk to falling into delinquency, whether it be hits the credit score or be just your car getting repossessed, right? That's I can't have that. I need to get to work to pay these bills. There are reasons why those would kind of bubble up as far as, things that consumers are paying attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody wants to lose their car.
No.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Right. So we could, I don't know, there's a couple of things that organizations can do. We talked a lot about all the different reasons why folks are paying late. We can move into a couple of practical pieces of advice from PayNearMe on some things that billing organizations can do based on survey data. Let's
do it.
All right. So number one, reminders, but not just reminders, timely reminders, right? 45% of our respondents said that a timely reminder would make bill payments easier. And we think about it, and you combine that with the tactic of engagement streams, sort of based on where the customer is in that bill pay process, this becomes highly effective. Again, not just reminders, hey, it's coming out, but looking at where your consumers are and building rules around where they are in their engagement streams and how they like to be communicated with, and delivering reminders in the channels they like to reach, whether it be, hey, you mentioned earlier, if I got a reminder from my phone, that would be awesome. And I go to my digital wallet, or did I want to get an email, or do I want to get a phone call? How do I want to get them? The timely reminders are really important. More mobile payment choices. We talked about that a lot, but 30% said that they wanted to use mobile payment options such as PayPal, Venmo. And so again, that's offering more ways to pay, how they want to pay really, really helps in improving those delinquency rates. Let's say number 3, fewer barriers to pay, right? So 50% polled said that remembering those logins, passwords made it bill pay challenging. We have at PayNearMe, we have a technology called SmartLink, which essentially allows billers to send a personalized link to the consumer. It authenticates them into a payment flow. It allows a payment without even having to log in. And if you think about combining that with a text message or a QR code on a paper bill, and then allowing your consumers use of an Apple Pay from their own device, that process, so easy and so slick.
I love it. And provided as a consumer, you see it and you trust it. You think it's legit, right? I guess that's the only friction I can possibly think of.
Yeah, with that SmartLink technology we have the ability to allow call center agents, if you're on the phone. So say you're a consumer, you found your way into, gosh, I can't figure this. I'm going to call the agents, and now you're on a really expensive phone call for a lender, right? You're now taking up an agent time, the most expensive kind of payment to be taking in. But your agent is equipped with the technology to say, hey, I'm going to send you a text message right now. It's going to have a link for you to complete your payment. And I'm going to stay on the phone with you case you have any trouble, here
Right.
it comes right now. Agent
Right.
stays on the phone. They send the link to the text message to the consumer. The consumer knows it's coming because they're already on the phone with the agent. They click on it, already takes them into their account. They say, select how they want to pay. They have choices once they get here. So if they want to put their debit card in, now your agents don't need to take that payment
right.
information over the phone, right?
right.
Beautiful for them. It's quick and
Yes.
the payment's complete. Consumer hangs up and they've settled their payment for the
And
month.
hopefully there's a way to lock that consumer in to say, oh yeah, and by the way, like this is how we can continue to serve you, for your payments.
Hey, you don't have to call me next time. How about we just initiate here auto pay, and what kind of schedule works for you, Joel? Do you want to set up your auto pay on every other week? Do you want it on Fridays? Do you want it on Monday? What a great customer experience that is.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
it. That my last thing was auto pay, right? That uneasiness with auto pay, that just because consumers want control and giving as much control and choice can help with auto pay adoption rates. We get asked that all the time. How can I get my auto pay adoption? How can I get my self-service rates up? How can I get my auto pay up? And, I think a key tenet of that is control and flexibility and letting your customers do scheduling options and payment types that work for them, but when they need it.
I think a really clean process that is good across the laptop and the phone. So we were talking earlier, I had to get a vehicle. So I purchased a vehicle completely online, sight unseen. It's on order type thing. But if I think about how I've purchased vehicles in the past, this is such a drastic departure from how I've done things. But I was fascinated by the process of the purchase and how it was conducted. And now I have like a little app on my phone that helps me track kind of a delivery date and the title docs and all this other stuff. And it's so clean and it's so streamlined that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to talk to some, salesman and this, and not say that they're bad, but it's like, you're motivated by one thing, I'm motivated by another. And it's like, we're always just trying to find our middle ground in conversations, obviously it removes the ability for me to negotiate, which I'm a haggler and that's kind of a normal thing for me, but it's great. I'm open to it. My takeaway for that one is you can move people who are resistant to change into a place where they will happily change their behavior. But I think you really need to come correct with some really good, clean processes and that menu that really helps them to feel comfortable with kind of ushering them through the process.
All right. If you understand the reasons for the discomfort or uneasiness in your consumer base, then you can address that, right? You have folks who are resistant to paper for a reason or resistant for paper bills. There are ways to continue to send them the paper bill if they really want it, but guide them to complete the payment via an electronic process, as opposed to sending a check or walking, into their center or what have you. There are certainly sort of ways to do that. And you're probably going to buy another car from them, aren't you, at some point? Like, because you had such a great process. Maybe.
Chances are it was a little expensive, so I hopefully not
All right,
too
so
soon.
Take the breaks. That's right. You got an upgrade on this one.
Well, Steve, any closing thoughts from you? Is there any kind of big ahas that you saw through the research?
I think all of our research combined, this was our third research paper. We're coming out with a fourth, which focuses mainly on the different generations. Across the board, though, like I said, giving customers more information and more choice up front increases the likelihood that they're going to pay on time and that they are going to be happy with the experience, right? Across the board, 81% of all customers across industries want to try self-service first. And the reason it fails is because you don't give them the information they need to make a payment. You don't give them the choices they need online, or the process is confusing. It's pinch and zoom on their phone, right?
Yeah.
The more of these barriers you can remove, the less likely someone's going to call you, eat up your call center time. It costs $8 per contact. It's expensive.
Yeah.
We'd much rather them try to do it themselves and do so in a timely manner. And I think all of that comes down to making the process delightful, easy, and convenient for your customers.
I love it.
And any closing thoughts from you? We'll give you the last word.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, lots of reasons for late payments, lots of things you can be doing. Billers should be paying attention to all of them to deliver the kind of experience that adults really prefer or need to successfully manage paying their bills. on time. As we mentioned, this is a third in a series. All of these reports, the charts, the infographics, all the data that organizations might need to go to bat at their company for getting some more of these mobile payment types and mobile, channels and things like that. We've got that out there for you. So that's it for us. Thanks for having us on the show, Joel.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to Ann Hay. She's the head of marketing and consumer research at PayNearMe, and Steve Murphy, who's the director of marketing at PayNearMe. I have the link that I'm going to share in the notes. It'll be in the podcast notes, but I've got the link here. It's probably too much to read off and then follow all the hashes and the dashes. But you can also go to PayNearMe.com and navigate your way through. They have a number of resources on the page. All good stuff. Thought leadership. So we're not just selling PayNearMe here. We're trying to share the thought leadership, which is the real spirit of the ConsumerFi podcast. And once again, I must thank Ann and Steve, both of you and your organization, for the support. Great thought leadership is exactly what we're looking for.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.